The ships came without warning. They appeared at the edge of the solar system like ghosts rising from the dark. There were hundreds of them. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls shimmered with colors that had no name in any human language. They moved in perfect formation, silent and terrible, like predators approaching sleeping prey. Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of the Resolute, Earth's largest warship. She watched the alien fleet on her screens. Her hands did not shake. Her voice did not waver. But deep inside, she felt something cold settle in her stomach. "How many?" she asked. 312 vessels, Admiral, her officer replied. "The smallest one is 5 times our size." Helena nodded slowly. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, they had their answer. And that answer had come with warships. The message arrived 1 hour later. It came in every human language at once. The voice was smooth, almost musical, but there was no warmth in it. "People of Earth, we are the Velith Arbiters, servants of the Galactic Concord. We come to welcome you into the family of civilized species. We come in peace. We come with purpose. Prepare to receive our ambassador." The shuttle landed in Geneva, at the headquarters of the United Terran Congress. World leaders gathered in the Great Hall. Soldiers lined the walls. Cameras broadcast everything to 8 billion watching humans. The alien that walked through the doors was tall and thin. Its skin was pale blue, and its eyes were large and completely black. It wore robes of silver and gold. Behind it walked 2 guards in gleaming armor. The creature moved with the confidence of someone who had never been refused. "I am Corvith Assay," the alien said. Its translator turned the words into perfect English. "I speak for the Galactic Concord. I speak for 4,000 species. I speak for an empire that has stood for 1 million years." Secretary General Marcus Chun stepped forward. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had led humanity through 3 wars and 2 plagues. But he had never faced anything like this. "Welcome to Earth," he said. "We have many questions." Corvus just tilted its head. "Of course you do. You are young. You are small. You have only just learned to walk among the stars. But do not worry. The Concord will guide you. The Concord will protect you. All you must do is accept the Galactic Pact." It raised one long hand. A hologram appeared in the air between them. Charts and maps and legal documents floated like ghosts. "The terms are simple," Corvith Sase continued. "You will surrender 40% of your territory to Concord administration. You will limit your military to defensive forces only. You will provide genetic tithe populations for labor across Concord worlds. In exchange, you will receive protection from hostile species. You will receive limited access to our technology. You will receive the honor of belonging to the greatest civilization in the universe." The room was silent. Marcus Chun stared at the hologram. His face showed nothing, but his mind was racing. "Genetic tithe populations," he said slowly. "You mean slaves?" Corvith Sa's black eyes blinked. "We mean workers, contributors. Your people would serve the greater good of the galaxy. And if we refuse?" The alien's expression did not change, but something in its voice grew colder. "No species has ever refused the pact. It would be unwise." Marcus Chun looked around the room. He saw presidents and prime ministers. He saw generals and scientists. He saw fear in some faces, anger in others. But in all of them, he saw the same thing, the refusal to kneel. "We need time to consider," he said. Corvith Essay nodded. "You have 7 of your days. We will wait." The alien turned and walked out. Its guards followed. The shuttle rose into the sky and disappeared among the waiting fleet. For 7 days, humanity argued. Politicians shouted in great halls. Citizens marched in the streets. Scientists analyzed the alien technology. Military officers calculated the odds of survival. The odds were not good. Admiral Helena Vance stood before the Congress on the final day. She was not a politician. She was a soldier. But soldiers sometimes had to speak truths that politicians could not. "They've been doing this for 1,000,000 years," she said. "They have conquered 4,000 species. They have technology we cannot understand. If we fight them, we will probably lose." The room was silent. "But if we accept their terms," Helena continued, "we lose anyway. We just lose slowly. We become slaves with comfortable chains. Our children become workers on alien worlds. Our grandchildren forget what it meant to be free." She looked at Marcus Chun. He nodded slowly. "The question is not whether we can win," Helena said. "The question is whether we are willing to fight. Whether we would rather die standing than live on our knees." The vote was held that afternoon. It was unanimous. Every nation, every leader, every representative, humanity said no. Corvusay returned the next morning. It stood in the same hall, before the same leaders. But something had changed. The confidence in its posture had become something harder. Something colder. "You refuse the pact?" It asked. Marcus Chun stood straight. "We do. You understand what this means? The Concord will declare you a rogue emergence. You will be classified as a threat to galactic stability. Every species in the Concord will be authorized to subjugate you or destroy you. We understand." Korth S.A. stared at him for a long moment. Its black eyes showed no emotion, no anger, no pity. Just the cold calculation of a predator that had never known defeat. "You are fools," it said. "In 10,000 years, no species has refused the pact and survived. You have just chosen extinction." Marcus Chun smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made peace with death. "Maybe," he said, "but we have chosen. That is what matters." Corvus-san turned and walked away. The Veloth ships departed that night. They vanished into the darkness between stars, carrying word of humanity's defiance back to their masters. Admiral Helena Vance stood at the window of her office. She watched the stars. Somewhere out there, an empire of 1,000,000 years was preparing for war. Somewhere out there, fleets were gathering. Armies were mobilizing. The full weight of the galaxy was about to fall upon one small species on one small world. Her aide approached nervously. "Admiral, what do we do now?" Helena did not turn from the window. Her voice was quiet, calm, certain. "Now we prepare. Now we build. Now we make them understand that extinction has a price." She touched the glass with her fingertips. "And we make that price very, very expensive." The message spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. In throne rooms and council chambers, in military academies and trading posts, the same words echoed. The humans had refused. A primitive species, barely 1,000 years old, had looked at the galactic Concord and said no. Some species laughed. Others were confused. A few, very quietly, felt something they had not felt in a long time. Something that might have been hoped. High Arbiter Salanthka sat on his throne in the heart of Veloth Prime. He was ancient. His blue skin had faded to gray over the centuries. His eyes had seen empires rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like this. "They refused," he said. The words felt strange in his mouth. They actually refused. His advisors stood before him in their silver robes. None of them spoke. "Summon the fleets," Salanthka commanded. "Every species that swore loyalty to the Concord. Every world that signed the pact. We will teach these humans what it means to defy us." The orders went out that same day. Across the galaxy, warships woke from their long sleep. Soldiers put on armor that had not been worn in generations. Commanders studied tactics that existed only in old books. 12 species pledged their armadas. The numbers grew quickly. 10,000 ships. 50,000. 100,000. 200,000. It was the largest fleet assembled in 6,000 years. Not since the last great rebellion had the Concord gathered such power. And that rebellion had ended in ashes and silence. On Earth, humanity watched and prepared. Admiral Vance established her headquarters on the moon. From there, she could see their planet hanging in the black sky. 8 billion souls depending on her. 12 colony worlds waiting for orders. 2,000 warships that suddenly seemed very small. But humanity had something the Concord did not expect. They had desperation. They had creativity. And they had absolutely nothing to lose. Project Prometheus, said Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She stood before a holographic display in the deepest levels of the lunar base. Around her sat the greatest scientific minds of the human species. The Concord has laws about what weapons can be used in war. They have followed these laws for millions of years. We are going to break every single one. The scientists worked day and night. They built weapons that the Concord had banned long ago. Artificial intelligences that could think faster than any living mind. Self-replicating drones that could multiply in the heart of battle. Relativistic kinetic weapons that could strike before the enemy saw them coming. The Concord had forgotten how to innovate. They had grown comfortable in their power. But humanity had been fighting itself for thousands of years. War was in their blood. War was in their bones. And now, for the first time, they had a target that was not themselves. The message came 3 months after the refusal. It arrived on an encrypted channel from a source that should not have existed. Admiral Vance read it alone. Her face showed nothing as her eyes moved across the words. But her heart beat faster. We are the Kreth. We were conquered by the Concord 12,000 years ago. We remember what freedom tasted like. We have watched your defiance. We wish to help. There were 2 other messages. One from the Uni, one from the Salaith. 3 species. 3 peoples who had lived under the pact for longer than humanity had existed. 3 flames that had never quite gone out. Vance met with them in secret. Small ships with damaged transponders. Hidden bases on dead moons. Whispered conversations in the dark. Why now? She asked the Kreth ambassador. He was small and furry, with eyes like black diamonds. Why help us? The ambassador was quiet for a moment. Because you said no. Because you showed us it was possible. For 12,000 years, we believed resistance was death. But you made us remember. The intelligence they provided was priceless. Fleet positions, communication codes, the names of commanders and the weaknesses of ships. But more than that, they provided understanding. The Concord has not fought a real war in 6,000 years, the Uni representative explained. She was tall and thin, with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Their tactics are ceremonial. Their soldiers are untested. They have overwhelming numbers, but they have forgotten what it means to fight someone who wants to win. Dr. Tanaka worked 18 hours a day. She slept in her laboratory and ate at her console. The equation swam before her eyes. But she would not stop. The Concord uses interdiction fields to prevent faster-than-light travel in combat zones, she explained to Admiral Vance. It is how they trap their enemies. No one has ever broken through. She smiled. It was the smile of a scientist who had found something wonderful and terrible. I broke through. The device was small enough to fit in a shuttle. It could punch holes in the interdiction fields. It could let human ships appear where they should not be strike where they could not be expected, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Vance looked at the device. She looked at the scientist. How long until we can produce these? 3 months for the first 100. A year for enough to equip the fleet. You have 6 months. Tanaka nodded. She did not argue. There was no time for arguments anymore. The reports came in waves. The Concorde fleet had crossed into the outer territories. They moved slowly, confidently. They stopped at each human colony to demand surrender. Most colonies refused. Some were destroyed as examples. Mars, Europa, Titan. One by one, the outer settlements went dark. Admiral Vance gathered her officers. Their faces were grim. The losses had barely begun, and already the weight was crushing. They think they are hunting animals, Vance said. They think we will run and hide and beg for mercy. They think this will be easy. She activated the main display. It showed the Concorde fleet approaching Proxima Reach, humanity's largest military outpost. 2,000 human ships waited there. 30,000 Concorde vessels were coming to meet them. It will not be easy, Vance said. We will hurt them. We will bleed them. We will make them understand that humanity does not surrender. She looked at each officer in turn. This is not about winning today. This is about surviving long enough to win tomorrow. We make them pay for every light year. We make them bleed for every world. We show the galaxy that the Concorde is not invincible. On every human world, the same message broadcast. In homes and factories and schools and shelters, the same words echoed. They are coming. Stand ready. Parents held their children. Soldiers checked their weapons. Scientists worked through the night. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the largest fleet in galactic history moved toward its prey. They expected victory. They expected surrender. They expected the quick death of another primitive species that had reached too far. They did not expect what was waiting for them. They did not expect humanity. The stars above Proxima Reach had never seen such a gathering of death. Admiral Yethmora stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was a Velith of pure blood, tall and proud, with medals covering his chest like scales of gold. He had commanded fleets for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions on 17 worlds. He had never known defeat. Before him, 30,000 warships spread across the darkness like a wall of steel and fire. Behind him, the full weight of the Galactic Concorde. Ahead of him, the tiny human fleet. Just 2,000 ships. Pathetic. Laughable. Open a channel, he commanded. Let them hear the voice of their conqueror. His face appeared on every screen in the human fleet. His words echoed through every corridor and bridge. Humans, I am Admiral Yethmora of the Galactic Concorde. You have defied the natural order of the universe. You have refused the gift of civilization. You have chosen death. He paused. This was the part he enjoyed most. But the Concorde is merciful. Surrender now, and your species will be spared. Your worlds will be occupied, not destroyed. Your people will serve, not die. This is my only offer. You have 1 hour to respond. The channel closed. Yethmora smiled and settled into his command chair. They will surrender, he said to his officers. They always do. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Helena Vance listened to the alien's words. Around her, officers waited in tense silence. Screens showed the enemy fleet in all its terrible glory. The numbers were impossible. 15 to 1. Maybe worse. Admiral? Her first officer asked. Your orders. Vance looked at the image of Yethmora frozen on her screen. She looked at his medals and his proud face and his absolute certainty. No response, she said. Man, they expect us to talk. They expect us to negotiate. They expect us to beg. She turned to face her crew. We will not give them what they expect. Not now. Not ever. She touched the fleet-wide communication button. All ships, this is Admiral Vance. In approximately 58 minutes, we begin our attack. Execute Protocol 17. Make them remember us. The hour passed in silence. Admiral Yethmara watched the clock count down. 50 minutes. 40. 30. No response from the humans. Strange, disturbing, but ultimately meaningless. Perhaps they are praying to their gods, he joked. His officers laughed politely. The clock reached 0. Sir, his sensor officer said, the human fleet is not moving. They are afraid. Begin the approach. Standard ceremonial formation. Let them see our strength before they die. The Concorde fleet began to move. 30,000 ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. This was how wars were fought in the civilized galaxy. With ritual. With order. With the absolute certainty of victory. The first wave of drones hit them. Before they had traveled 10,000 kilometers, they came from everywhere. From the asteroid field. From the gas giant's atmosphere. From clouds of debris that should have been empty. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Small and fast and absolutely fearless. Where did they come from? Yethmara demanded. Alarms screamed across his bridge. Unknown, sir. They were not there a moment ago. The drones did not attack the ships. They attacked the formations. They targeted communication relays and sensor arrays. They exploded against shield generators and engine housings. They were not trying to destroy the fleet. They were trying to blind a dot, and then the human ships moved. They did not advance in formation. They did not follow any pattern Yethmara recognized. They scattered like insects, weaving through the chaos, striking and vanishing, never staying still long enough to be targeted. They are not fighting correctly, Yethmara stammered. The first Concorde ship exploded. Then another. Then a dozen. The humans were using weapons that the Concorde had banned millennia ago. Relativistic projectiles that hit before sensors could detect them. AI-controlled torpedoes that adapted in real time. Nuclear-pumped lasers that cut through shields like paper. Sir, the divine purpose has been destroyed. The celestial order is venting atmosphere. We have lost contact with 47 ships. Yethmara could not understand what he was seeing. The humans were outnumbered 15-1. They should be running. They should be dying. Instead, they were fighting like nothing he had ever encountered. They were fighting like predators. Admiral Vance's ship was in the heart of the battle. Explosions lit the darkness around her. Her crew worked in focused silence, responding to threats faster than thought. Wolfpack 7? Status? Enemy carrier group neutralized, Admiral. Moving to secondary targets. Dr. Tanaka's interdiction breakers? Working perfectly. We have ships appearing behind their main line. They do not know how to respond. Vance watched the battle unfold on her screens. The Concorde fleet was larger and stronger, but they were fighting a war of ceremony against an enemy that had no rules. Their ships kept trying to form patterns that the humans immediately disrupted. Their commanders kept waiting for the humans to behave properly. The humans did not behave properly. Suicide drone struck the Eternal Dominion. The explosion tore through 3 decks. Admiral Yethmara was thrown across his bridge. When he rose, his robes were torn and his blood stained the floor. Full retreat. He screamed. All ships fall back. But the retreat was not orderly. The Concorde fleet had never practiced real retreat. They had never needed to. Ships collided with each other. Communication channels overloaded with panic. Commanders gave contradictory orders. The humans followed them. They harried the retreating fleet for 6 hours. They struck at stragglers and crippled ships. They did not stop until the last Concorde vessel had fled beyond the system's edge. Then they stopped. They did not pursue. They did not have the strength. Admiral Vance stood on her damaged bridge and looked at the casualty reports. 1,400 human ships destroyed. Thousands of lives lost. Nearly 70% of her fleet was gone, but the Concorde had lost 18,000 vessels. They had lost Admiral Yethmora, who died of his wounds during the retreat. They had lost something even more valuable. They had lost the myth of their invincibility. Across the galaxy, vassal species watched the battle recordings in hidden rooms and secret gatherings. They saw the mighty Concorde fleet scatter. They saw the impossible happen. For the first time in 6,000 years, the Concorde had bled. On Velith Prime, High Arbiter Salantka received the casualty reports. His hands trembled as he read the numbers. His voice was barely a whisper. 18,000 ships. In a single battle. Against primitives. His advisors stood in terrified silence. None of them had ever seen the High Arbiter afraid. "What are these creatures?" he asked. But no one could answer. Far away, on her damaged flagship, Admiral Vance composed a message to Earth. Her face was gray with exhaustion. Her uniform was stained with blood and smoke. But her eyes were clear. "We won," she said simply. "We won, and now they know. Now the whole galaxy knows. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not kneel. And humanity does not die easily." She looked at the stars beyond her window. This is just the beginning. The galaxy was burning. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Proxima Reach. 1 year since the Concorde had learned that humanity would not break. 1 year since the old order had begun to crack. Admiral Vance stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Defiant. Before her, the blue-green world of Kreth Prime hung in the void. For 12,000 years, it had been a slave world. Today, it would be free. "All ships," she commanded, "begin the assault." The human fleet had grown. Not in size, but in ferocity. They had learned from every battle. They had adapted. They had become something new. Something that the Concorde still could not understand. The Concorde garrison around Kreth Prime was strong. 3,000 ships, orbital platforms, defense satellites, enough firepower to destroy any normal attacking force. But humanity had stopped being normal a long time ago. The battle lasted 4 hours. Human ships wove through the Concorde defenses like dancers. Dr. Tanaka's new weapons turned enemy shields into useless decorations. AI-controlled fighters swarmed through gaps in the enemy formation. When it was over, the human fleet had lost 200 ships. The Concorde had lost everything. On the surface of Kreth Prime, the slaves looked up at the sky. They saw the burning wreckage of their master's fleet falling like dying stars. They heard a voice in their language, speaking words they had not heard in 12 millennia. "People of Kreth, you are free." The uprising began that same day. It spread like a disease that the Concorde could not cure. On world after world, species that have been silent for thousands of years suddenly found their voices. The Uni seized their orbital stations. The Salaith destroyed their overseers. Dozens of other species rose up, inspired by the impossible victory of a people they had never met. Secretary General Marcus Chun broadcast a message across all Concorde frequencies. His face appeared on screens in council chambers and military bases, in slave quarters and throne rooms. "We are humanity," he said. 1 year ago, we refused the Galactic Pact. They told us we would die. They were wrong. He paused. His eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer. Today, I make a declaration. We call it the Soul Declaration. Any species that rejects the pact is a friend of Earth. Any species that enforces it is our enemy. There is no middle ground. If you want freedom, fight for it. And know that you do not fight alone. The declaration split the galaxy in two. High Arbiter Solent Ka watched the news from his throne. Reports flooded in from every sector. Rebellions, defections, military defeats. The empire that had stood for 1,000,000 years was crumbling before his eyes. The humans must be destroyed, he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with desperate fury. Whatever the cost. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. One stepped forward, bowing low. High Arbiter, our forces are stretched thin. The rebellions require. I do not care about the rebellions. Solent Ka slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. Without the humans, there is no rebellion. They are the infection. We must cut them out. He rose from his throne. He was old, but in that moment he looked ancient. The weight of 1,000,000 years pressed down on his shoulders. Activate the Omega contingency. The room went silent. The advisors stared in horror. High Arbiter, that weapon has not been used in 100,000 years. It is necessary. Solent Ka's voice left no room for argument. The humans must learn that there are consequences for defiance. Prepare the weapon. Select the target. The target was New Helsinki. It was a small colony. 3,000,000 people on a cold world at the edge of human space. Miners and farmers. Families and children. They had no military value. They were chosen because they were easy to reach. The weapon was a relic from a darker age. A ship the size of a moon, carrying enough power to crack a planet like an egg. It had been built to end wars, to end civilizations, to end hope. That it arrived without warning. The defense fleet was swept aside in minutes. The people of New Helsinki looked up at the sky and saw death descending. Admiral Vance received the news mid-battle. She was leading an assault on a Concord supply depot when her communications officer spoke in a voice that was barely human. Admiral, New Helsinki, they. The words would not come. Vance took the report and read it herself. 8,000,000 dead. The planet's crust shattered. The atmosphere burning. Nothing left. Nothing at all. For a long moment, she did not move. The battle continued around her. Orders were given. Ships maneuvered. But Vance was somewhere else. Somewhere cold and dark and absolutely certain. Admiral? Her first officer asked. Your orders? Vance looked up. Her face was stone. But her eyes were something else entirely. Find their homeworld, she said. Velith Prime, the seat of the High Arbiter. The heart of the Concord. And then, we end this. On Velith Prime, the Reformers finally broke with the old order. A faction of Velith, who had watched the war with growing horror, could no longer remain silent. They demanded peace. They demanded negotiation. They demanded an end to the madness. High Arbiter Solent Ka had them executed. There will be no peace, he declared. There will be no negotiation. The humans have shown us what they are. Animals. Beasts. They must be exterminated. Every last one. He ordered the construction of more planet killers. He demanded total war. He stripped the Concord's reserves bare to build the largest fleet in galactic history. But even as he gave these orders, reports continued to arrive. More rebellions. More defeats. More species turning against the Concord. The Empire was bleeding from 1,000 wounds, and there was not enough power in the universe to stop it. Admiral Vance gathered her allies. Human ships. Kreth warships. Uni cruisers. Salaith fighters. Vessels from a dozen other species who had thrown off their chains. It was a fleet of the free. A fleet of the desperate. A fleet that had nothing left to lose. We cannot match their numbers, she told her commanders. "We cannot match their firepower. But we do not need to. We just need to reach Velith Prime. We just need to end this war." She looked at each face around the table. Human, alien, different in every way. United in one thing. They burned New Helsinki. They killed 8 million people to teach us fear. Her voice was quiet, deadly. We will teach them something else. We will teach them that humanity does not learn fear. Humanity teaches it. Secretary General Chun arrived on the flagship that night. He looked older than his years. The weight of 8 million dead souls pressed on his shoulders. "Are we doing the right thing?" he asked Vance. "This attack. If we fail, we die," Vance replied. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway. The only question is whether we die on our knees or on our feet." Chun nodded slowly. "Then let us die on our feet." The fleet departed the next morning. 10,000 human warships, 6,000 allied vessels, 16,000 ships carrying the hope of 100 species. They flew toward Velith Prime. They flew toward the heart of the Empire. They flew toward the end of everything, and the galaxy held its breath. Velith Prime was beautiful. It hung in the void like a jewel of blue and silver. Ancient cities covered its surface, built over millions of years by a species that had once dreamed of touching the stars. Now those cities trembled with fear as the sky filled with ships. 50,000 Concord vessels surrounded their homeworld. The largest fleet ever assembled in defense of a single planet. Every ship that could be spared from every corner of the Empire had been recalled. This was the final stand. The last line. High Arbiter Saanth Ka watched from his palace as the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 16,000 ships. Less than a third of his own force. He should have felt confident. He should have felt certain of victory. He felt nothing but cold fear. "All ships," he commanded, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. "Engage the enemy. Leave nothing alive." The battle for Velith Prime began in fire. Admiral Vance led from the front. Her flagship, the Unconquered, cut through the enemy line like a knife through water. Around her, human and allied ships fought with desperate fury. They had come too far to fail. They had lost too much to stop now. Wolfpack divisions target their command ships. "Dr. Tanaka, is Project Icarus ready?" The scientist's voice came through clear and calm. "Ready on your command, Admiral. Hold for my signal." The battle raged across 1,000,000 kilometers. Ships exploded. Crews died. The darkness between stars filled with burning metal and frozen bodies. The Concord fleet was larger, stronger, better equipped. But they fought to defend. The humans fought to end. There is a difference. 3 hours into the battle, the Concord line began to crack. Human ships found gaps in their formation and exploited them mercilessly. Kreth vessels drew enemy fire, while Uni cruisers struck from unexpected angles. The Allied fleet moved like a single organism, each part supporting the others. "Now," Vance commanded. "Project Icarus, now." Dr. Tanaka activated the weapon. It was not a bomb or a missile. It was an idea given form. A virus made of pure mathematics. It spread through the Concord communication network faster than light. Could travel. The effect was immediate. Concord ships that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly fell into chaos. Their targeting systems gave false information. Their navigation computers led them into their own crossfire. Their commanders screamed orders that never reached their crews. "What is happening?" Saanth Ka demanded. His screens showed madness. His fleet was destroying itself. "The humans, they have infected our systems. We cannot." The communication cut off. The advisor's ship had just collided with another Concord vessel. Admiral Vance pressed the attack. "All ships forward. Break their line. Reach the planet. The Allied fleet surged ahead. They took terrible losses. Thousands died in those final hours. But they could not be stopped. They would not be stopped. The ghosts of New Helsinki drove them forward. The orbital defenses fell. The Concorde fleet scattered or surrendered. Dropships descended toward the planet's surface. Human soldiers touched ground on Velith Prime. Secretary General Marcus Chem was among them. He walked through the ancient streets of the capital city. Around him, Velith civilians stared in silent terror. They had been told that humans were monsters, beasts that would devour their children and burn their world. They expected death. Chun stopped before a group of cowering citizens. He was tired. His uniform was stained with the dust of a dozen worlds. But his voice was gentle. "We are not here to hurt you," he said. "We are here to end a war that your leaders started. Go home, stay safe. This will be over soon." The palace of the High Arbiter stood at the center of the city. It was a monument of crystal and gold, built over 1,000 generations. It had never been threatened. It had never been touched by war. Until today. Human soldiers breached the doors. They moved through empty halls, past abandoned thrones, into the heart of the building. And there, in a room of silver and shadow, they found the High Arbiter. Solentka stood alone. His guards had fled or died. His advisors had abandoned him. He was just an old creature in faded robes, watching his empire crumble. "How?" he asked as Chun entered the room. "How did you do this? You are primitives, children. You have existed for a moment. We have ruled for 1,000,000 years." Chun walked toward him slowly. Outside, the sounds of battle had finally stopped. "That is exactly why," Chun said. "You ruled for so long that you forgot what it means to fight for survival. You forgot what it means to be afraid. You forgot what it means to have nothing left to lose." He stood before the High Arbiter, this ancient being who had controlled the fates of trillions. "You asked us to kneel. We do not kneel. We never did. And we taught the galaxy that no one else has to either." Solentka's shoulders slumped. The fire in his eyes died. "What now?" he whispered. "Will you destroy us? Will you become what we were?" Chun shook his head. "No, we will not become you. We will do what you never could. We will let you choose." The surrender was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. Every species heard it. Every world watched as the Galactic Concorde admitted defeat. But more than that, they heard what came next. The Galactic Pact was abolished. Every species under Concorde control was given a choice: freedom or voluntary alliance. No tribute. No genetic ties. No subjugation. The 1,000,000-year empire ended not in fire, but in a single word. Choice. 5 years later, a new assembly gathered on a world that had once been neutral territory. Representatives from 1,000 species filled the great hall. Some had been masters. Some had been slaves. Now they were equals. Admiral Helena Vance stood at the edge of the gathering. She no longer commanded fleets. She no longer fought battles. The war had taken everything from her: her friends, her health, her years. But it had given something back. It had given her this. Ambassador Corvith Assay approached her. The Velith looked different now. His robes were simpler. His posture was humbler. The arrogance that had filled him when they first met was gone. "Admiral Vance," he said, bowing slightly. "I never had the chance to apologize. For what? For calling your species primitives. For threatening you with extinction. For believing that strength comes from domination." He paused. "We were wrong about you." "About everything?" Vance looked at the assembly. She saw species that had hated each other for millennia now talking, laughing, building something new. She saw the children of slaves playing with the children of masters. "You called us a rogue emergence," she said. A mistake of evolution. Yes, maybe you were right. Maybe we are a mistake. She smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. But maybe the universe needed a mistake. Someone who did not know the rules. Someone who refused to accept that things could not change. Corvithasa nodded slowly. What will humanity do now? You could claim the throne. You could rule in our place. Vance laughed. It was a strange sound after so many years of war. We do not want to rule. We never did. We just wanted to be free. And now, she gestured at the assembly. Now everyone is. Secretary General Chun approached them. He was older now, his hair fully white, his steps slower. But his eyes still burned with the same fire that had led humanity through the darkest years. The vote is complete, he said. The Galactic Assembly has agreed to the new charter. 100% support. Not a single species refused. Vance looked at him. And humanity's role? Whatever we want it to be. Most species have asked us to help them rebuild. To teach them how we did it. How we survived. And what will you tell them? Chum smiled. The truth. That we are not special. We are not stronger or smarter or better than anyone else. We just refused to believe we were weaker. He looked out at the stars, and we refused to give up. The ceremony ended as the sun set on that distant world. Representatives returned to their ships, carrying hope to every corner of the galaxy. A new era had begun. Not an era of empire, but an era of choice. Admiral Vance stood alone on a balcony, watching the ships depart. The scars of war still marked her face and her heart. She would carry them forever. But tonight, for the first time since New Helsinki, she felt peace. We did it, she whispered to the stars. To the ghosts. To the 8 million souls who had died so that the galaxy could be free. We did it. Far away, on a small blue world called Earth, children who had never known war looked up at the night sky. Their parents had told them stories of the dark times, of the Concord, of the battles, of the heroes who had fought and died. But that was history now. That was the past. The future was theirs to write, and it would be written in freedom.